that interesting to me. I was about to go to sleep and this just woke me up. So, but that's why we're here on this show right now too, because like I'm saying is, not everybody is just willing to, put in the effort and work to get what they want and do what they want and try to make a difference or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the three of us here, I'm sure Elliot too, are willing to, do what it takes. You know what I'm saying? And that's God energy. Earlier, the guy was talking about Jesus Christ and believing in Jesus Christ. That's you guys believing in Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because y'all not worried about whatever the hell some other man do, unless they take your life. It don't even matter because you're gonna take care of business regardless, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how I feel. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna take care of business. I want to get into this social contract shit. I don't want to put y'all to sleep, but I do want to talk about this for a second.
Up ready and my relatable girl next door influencer personality, and I'm ready to take you on an exciting journey through the dark, seedy underbelly of Detroit property taxes in the early 2000s. For real though, it is actually fascinating and quite dark. If you own a house, you've got to pay taxes on it every year. How much you pay depends on how much it's worth. If you have a really nice house, you pay more. If you live in an old ruin, you pay less. Or at least that's how it's supposed to work. But starting in 2009, the city of Detroit suddenly decided that a lot of old, run-down houses in poor neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods, were actually worth loads of money and raised the property taxes on them by a huge amount. A lot of residents couldn't afford the new taxes, so they got their homes foreclosed on, about 100,000 homes in total. And obviously this made them miserable, stressed, poor, homeless, and even dead. And it was illegal. Michigan has a law on the books that says authorities can't value a home for tax purposes at more than 50% of its market value. And many of the residents weren't supposed to be paying any taxes anyway because they were living below the poverty threshold. So double illegal. The truest crime there is. But the law was just ignored. Even after the evidence came out that this was illegal, city officials said, well, just pay your taxes, you bums. And if you don't, you get evicted. And what are you supposed to say to that? You're going to hire a lawyer? Well, how can you afford one? Because the city can afford a great lawyer. Now they've pocketed all the cash they got from selling your house.
It's free real estate.
Essentially, the government of Detroit and Wayne County, Michigan, stole tens of thousands of houses from poor people, mainly poor black people, despite the fact that they were allegedly living in a democratic system where there were rules in place specifically to prevent that very thing. How did this happen? What does it tell us about the real nature of that system?
Okay, I'm sure y'all can.
They don't give a fuck, bro. They do that shit. They do it all the time. Like they do it in the Chaka. You know this shit, Pat. You lived around Houston. They do this shit in certain neighborhoods around the outskirts of Houston. You can afford to pay your house payment, but you can't afford the taxes every year. And they do that to keep a certain demographic out. This was all a part of way of them to gentrify these neighborhoods because these white folks want it back in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Because it was blacks and whites in these neighborhoods. The blacks started flooding Detroit back when you had Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, all of the big car manufacturers there, and they moved out and now they want back in. You see that, and then on top of that, the shit with the Democrat, like that don't even matter. Because we all know the Democratic Party do not give a fuck about nobody.
A lot of those black people were fleeing the South too after Reconstruction and Jim Crow.
Well, we're talking about because I mean that was just another way of looking. I mean, for me, that's just another way of looking at how slavery played out because they wanted black people to do jobs that they didn't really want to do in the car industry, so they actually promoted that. Hey, get out of the South. You know what I'm saying? This is the whole, get a chance to get a taste of what America really is, and they got sold that that whole, you know, American Dream thing, and they came out. They had all. They got them, you know, pretty much hooked on a new way of life, and then they took all the jobs and sold it to other countries. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? So
That's
it
just
was
like all
like
your river cities.
one of the biggest setups that I think ever happened. You know, and Gary, Indiana, still sees it, but like, and plus other places. But to me, it's just like really the way all of that stuff happened is conspired, and I think this is something that's like just like what they're doing right now. You know, with all of this stuff that we're going on, like it's something that they planned and it's working. But
Yep.
we have to take more responsibility because that stuff with the taxes, we supposed to know, you know, our laws. We're supposed to know what we're subject to and what they can and can't do, because otherwise, who's else going to enforce these laws if you never bring it up and say, hey, you know, what about this law here? It says blah 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 blah, and
What
then
about all
I mean,
these black congressmen that was asking for these black folks votes in
vote.
the
Well,
Detroit? Because I
that
remember
Yeah,
that
hey,
shit. You
yeah,
know what I'm
that's
saying?
that too.
that
But I think
that
Where was
Pat's
all these
comment
black attorneys?
is what's really important though. You need to be educated. You need to know about this stuff. This is the what gentrification is and what people don't really understand. So, but if they knew about what was happening and that this shit that they're doing to them is actually illegal, then you know. But they're not aware. And then you know, I wanted to talk about this a bit too. The defeatist attitude that a lot of black people have. You know,
Hmm.
that I'm a victim ass attitude. Like they're just gonna fuck over me no matter where I go or whatever the fuck. Like
yeah,
you know,
they're not gonna let me prosper. They're not gonna, dude. It ain't up to them on whether you prosper. Like if you claim to have a God, believe me, He gives you everything that you need. It's just whether you utilize it or not.
Bro, if you show these people that you willing to stand on who you are, like that's the thing, bro. And I think I ain't gonna say I think I know I've heard Pat say this shit. I know I heard Chaka say like you gotta stand for something. And trust, like I work around, like I'm literally one of the only black guys. Well, we got another black dude now that work. Like if you stand on who you are and you don't bend who you are or fold or conform to their little fucking jokes and shit like that, and you check them on they bullshit, like bro, when they see that, these white folks don't fuck with you, dude.
Yeah,
right.
And they
I
don't
was gonna.
fuck with you.
Let me tell you,
Like
in a restaurant. This I've been working in a restaurant for years, and they like the cooks and shit. Like they automatically don't respect you. Now, for you to get respect, guess what you got to do?
you gotta check a motherfucker.
You got to cuss somebody the fuck out. You got to let them know you ain't finna put up with their bullshit. And
Hmm.
then the moment you do that, they respect you, and they like you. It's
I
weird.
was like, oh, okay, all right. You know, yeah, I say I can respect him. You know, like that's the whole thing. Like, if you sit there, because I mean, that's one. Like, it's a test. Like every day is a test, and especially when you go somewhere new, it's like, okay, because I've been in those situations. I've worked in restaurants and all that kind of stuff, so I mean, I know what it's like. So I mean, it's just like they definitely trying to see what type of dude you are, whether they want to, you know, befriend you, if they're going to make things easy for you, or you know, make things hard for you while you're there,
Yep.
or if they even want you to be there.
Right, because they can make you not be there because it'll look like you making a bunch of mistakes or whatever the hell. It's because they're gonna be like, this guy keeps fucking up or whatever. But it'll be like, because it's like that in everywhere. People like
but
in the
they do that
streets.
shit to the sellout black dude. They do that to the kiss ass that want to go out and
Hmm.
have drinks with them. Like, nah, fuck y'all. Say, bro, yeah, I'm not going to no restaurant with y'all. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not like, yeah, wasn't y'all the same motherfuckers that was just sitting in here in this break room talking about the southern borders and Mexicans, and now y'all want to go eat at it? I'm not going with y'all. I ain't like, what the fuck, you got me fucked up. And when you check them in that way, bro, like literally, it's like, oh man, Say, bro, you are who you are. I appreciate you for putting yourself out there. Now I know, cause I don't. That's one thing I don't like. I don't like a in the closet motherfucker. I'd rather
Exactly.
know that you don't fuck
N-
with me.
Now we understand each other. Now we
Yeah,
know
Yeah.
where we
you know.
stand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because one of them motherfuckers that always, oh man, hey, I don't need you in my face like that. I just need to know who you are. Once you let me know who you are, I can respect you. You can respect me. We can move about. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? You ain't gotta like me, but while we here, you gonna respect me. I'm gonna respect you. You know what I'm saying?
And
And
I be thinking like if a race riot pop out for like a race war pops off, then you know who's gonna be popping at you too.
yeah,
You know who to use for duck practice.
yeah, yeah. But the crazy thing is, bro, is that when you check them motherfuckers that's like that, if something like that were to pop off, you would be surprised. They would be the ones that would actually be in your corner because of the
Probably.
fact that they have the respect. They know, like, okay,
Yep.
this motherfucker. But if you some sucker ass black dude that's conforming and sucking a dick,
I'm the
and
one that's
laughing at
liable.
all they joke,
I'm liable to knock them off.
exactly, like for real, bro.
Me too.
You
Me.
know,
Knock the motherfucker off real quick. No
yeah.
question. And I feel good at night.
Because y'all know the story of what's his name? It was the race. They call it a race riot, but it was like a it was an insurrection. It was a what the hell was the guy's name? It doesn't matter. He said, "All right, you guys, who's willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to get free? You know what I'm saying? Step forward." And some people stepped forward and some didn't. And he said, "Okay, first order of business, take care of every one last one of them that didn't step forward. It's their liability." That's a true story, and that really happened.
Hmm.
Um, because he said these people with this doubt, they're going to be the first ones if
To
they're not
snitch.
willing to, yes, and they're a liability. They're going to fucking hinder us accomplishing what we trying to accomplish. They are
Bro,
our
you
worst
just think
enemies.
about you think about it. If all four of us right now was in a was an in, was in a slave encampment and we're conspiring to get out of here, and you got one motherfucker, one of us four, like, no, I don't know about that, Master. If Master and them get a hold of you, you want to go and get rid of that motherfucker
Yeah,
because he gonna tell Master your whole look that CNN gonna have your whole memoir, nigga. Like, look, his whole manifesto. This was how he was gonna do it. Like, you got to get rid of him.
he got to go.
He got to go. But man, back to the topic of what they doing, right, or what they did in Detroit, man. We got to also look at, and I call them river cities. And when I say river cities, I'm talking about like you got the city of Houston or port cities. City of Houston. You got Memphis, Tennessee. You
The
got St.
background
Louis.
noise.
You got St. Louis. So let's say we got Houston, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, and it's one more that I'm missing. I can't ever get this one. But you think about all of these cities, bro, where you had forklift operators, machinists, you had skilled laborers. You know, you look at those cities and look at how they look now. Like I literally go to Memphis, Tennessee every week, off of off of Danny Thomas Road, the founder of Wendy's. He's the one
Memphis,
that sh-
yeah.
yeah, that Shriner whole deal. You go down through that neighborhood. There's a chemical plant that I deliver hydrogen to. But you go down through there, and it's like you got white people that live literally in the hood. Like it's all white folks right here. But you think about these cities, and these were you know what I'm saying? Like it's just so you think about that shit and look
And,
at how
and
all of the
they
black folks are
said, they
displaced.
understood and they own too.
I can't hear you. I can't make
Yeah,
out
we,
what you're
we, we
saying.
can't we
They
can't understand anything you
understood
say.
and they own too.
We can't
Round
understand anything you say. I don't know. Maybe Chaka can, but we can't.
something about
I
round
want.
two. But look, I want to jump on what Deuce was saying because the freaking history of these cities were black cities throughout history, and I think that that's another part that causes a lot of confusion because, like, if when we talk about like the old Egypt or the Nile or whatever, Mississippi River,
Well,
you talk about the the Aboriginal
this
peoples.
was a black country. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but especially through there, because that's the trade. Um, even before, because see, it wasn't spread out. It's different peoples. Even historically, there has been like different groups of peoples, right? So, but you had these river peoples, basically, is what you would call them, like kind of what Deuce is saying. These are black people. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, that even throughout all the way back through history. So, and then what you're saying about these now, it's like these cities are where you go for prostitution and drugs and right shit like that. Like I can't find the
I
words.
no, I think most of us are following. We just go
Yeah,
get on to the get to the
what
meat of it.
what I'm trying to say is that this is one of the things that has happened over time. You know what I mean? Them switching the kings and queens and turning them into crackheads. Like, but then it's not even a real thing. It's more of a perception because the people really hasn't changed that much. It's more of like the way people see them. You know what I'm saying?
How everybody else sees them, and I mean, well, even themselves. I mean, they don't even see them. A lot of us don't even see ourselves with the value that we really have, and like you know, I think that narrative is changing a lot, but at the same time, it's still we got a lot of work to do. But to me, it's like they have, you know, but I've been saying that I guess most of the show is that like all these things were purposely done, and the quicker we realize that, and then we begin to change the narratives ourselves, because I mean the only way that true justice for any people on this land will happen is when we take control. Like
I want to.
any other way, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I can't disagree with none of that you just said. I want to play some more of this. She's going to talk about the social contract and explaining what it is. And the philosophy of it is really freaking interesting because it's like she's saying that when you were born, well, she's going to explain it, but it's like when you were born, you subscribe to the social contract that you didn't even ask to be a part of, but it's like you sign up by default when you take advantage of the amenities that are offered to you in.
Or or you have a job that you keep coming up incomplete. Like I mean, you end up you sign up for a job that you're not completing. You're supposed to be bringing justice back to the earth. Like you're supposed to be doing more things than what you're doing. That's how I look at it. I mean, I look at it like, yeah, you're born into this thing, but it's a job. Like if you don't have something to
You
work
got to do
for,
work.
yeah,
You
like
got
I
to do
mean,
work. Let me play this.
What has happened to the social contract? To answer that, we're going to learn what the social contract is, what its weaknesses are, and then what's happening to it today. If you enjoyed tonight's performance, you can sign up at patreon.com/philosophy. Here's the deal. The social contract is an idea that's turned up in various philosophers' works over the last 350 years. If I explain all of them in detail, we'll be here till Armageddon. As a demon, I have forever, but as a lawyer, I charge by the hour. So let me give you the broad strokes. We live, it has been said, in a society. How did that happen? Well, philosophers who subscribe to this social contract idea like to imagine a time before society existed, when there were no rules or laws yet. They call it the state of nature. What exactly the state of nature was like depends on who you read. The English philosopher Thomas Hobbes said that it was pretty hellish. Life in the state of nature was solitary, nasty, poor, brutish, and short, a war of all against all.
The state of nature. That's how he's describing. But see, they're talking about a philosophy, an idea of the things before there was a structured like society. But still, you talk about nature and you talk about it that way. That's kind of painful.
Well, I mean, there's not many times in our past that there was not some form of structure. It's just that when we have people to come in and want to take control, they have to act as if something is wrong with that. 'Cause I mean, I'm gonna say that there was a lot of things wrong when we were in power the last time, and that's one of the reasons why we lost where we were. But at the same time, it was things that we probably really could fix and it not have to come to this point. But because we're not willing.
This is all our fault. I always say that. And you touched on what it's gonna take her half the video to explain it, but you touched on what she's gonna say is because they after the fact are gonna be like, that was bad, so you have to have we need to rule you so that it won't be bad no more. Basically.
Yeah.
Later philosophers like Frenchman Jean-Jacques Rousseau said it might not have been so bad because humans have a natural tendency towards compassion. John Locke, another name we'll be hearing a lot, said that there were still some rules, some morality placed in humans by God. Bottom line, the stated nature was whatever came naturally to human beings, which could have been a lot of things. Society is everything that got built on top. In the stated nature, people had some freedoms that they don't have now. For instance, if somebody steals your stuff in the stated nature, you can go and clobber them. You can't do that now. There's a justice system that's supposed to handle it, unless you live in Detroit. But because the state of nature has some downsides, like anybody can clobber you and it's hard to get stuff done, people came together and agreed to live in a society. That agreement is called the social contract. This is a very important detail, so it's worth making sure that you get it. The idea is that humanity's natural state is freedom, that nobody is born having political authority over anybody else. One of Rousseau's most famous lines was, "Man is born free and everywhere he is in chains." The first 4 words there are, man is born free. That's going to be important in a moment. The outcome of the social contract, though, is that people gave up some of their natural freedoms in exchange for the benefits of living in a society. Like, okay, you can't clobber anyone who takes your stuff anymore, but on the flip side, you get a justice system and medicine and opera and mobile phones and pork pies and all the other things that humans enjoy. In particular, John Locke said one of the great things you get out of the social contract is your private property gets secured. Again, unless you live in Detroit. There are a few things hidden in the fine print here that depend on who you read, like who made this agreement. Hobbes said it was individuals. Locke and Rousseau said it was families. And what exactly did they agree on? Some writers say the social contract created the rules of morality, or governments, or laws, or specific institutions. There was a modern philosopher called John Rawls who had his own version, but we're not going to worry about him for today. So that's the basic idea. 3 main ingredients. The state of nature, where everyone's naturally free, the people who came together, and the agreement they made to limit their freedom in exchange for civilization. Now, you're very clever, so you've probably already realized that that's a load of bollocks. That never happened. That's completely made up. And yes, people have been saying that since the beginning. Here's Scottish philosopher David Hume writing in 1752.
Were you to preach in most parts of the world that political connections are founded altogether on voluntary consent or a mutual promise, the magistrate would soon imprison you as seditious for loosening the ties of obedience. If your friends did not before shut you up as delirious for advancing such absurdities, almost all the governments which exist at present, or of which there remains any record in story, have been founded originally either on usurpation or conquest or both.
In fact,
Yeah. So like basically that philosophy and what the guy was saying was that, all societies started off of, being, subjugated, people being subjugated and forced into this society. People don't get to choose. Let me play some more.
Even if that whole story about the state of nature was true, so what? If your ancestors agreed to live in a society, what does it have to do with you? When you were born, was there somebody there from the government going, "Do you accept the terms and conditions?" No.
No.
Some philosophers, like Rousseau, tried to get around this by saying that if you enjoy the benefits of society, you implicitly agree to live by its rules. Like you might not have signed a literal contract, but by continuing to enjoy video games and hummus, you do sign an invisible one. And if you don't like it, there's the door. But again, Hume says that's bollocks.
Can we seriously say that a poor peasant or artisan has a free choice to leave his country when he knows no foreign language or manners and lives from day to day by the small wages which he acquires? We may as well assert that a man, by remaining in a vessel, freely consents to the dominion of the master, though he was carried on board while asleep and must leap into the ocean and perish the moment he leaves her.
Agree.
So what do y'all think?
Well, I mean, really, a lot of it is so true. I mean, it's just, but what is, this leads me back to the other options that we have. I'm not a part of I don't have to have the same rules. I mean, because I do have the same rules, but I mean, most of them are still really rules that is natural, based on natural law. But them having me being actually being subject to some of those things can change, or aren't totally the same as like the regular citizen. So that's where it kind of takes me to, is like trying to let people know that you have options. It's just that you got to learn what they are. You can't just sit back and cry and talk shit about everything that's wrong if you're not willing to try to do something.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about education when we was talking about gentrification and fighting for your house and shit. Because if they're doing some shit illegal, you definitely got fucking something to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
Agreement is not how society was formed, and it's clearly not how society works now. However, that's not the point. It's not meant to be an accurate historical story. Social contract theory is meant to give us a nice test to evaluate the societies we do live in. We can look at a government or an institution or even a specific piece of legislation and ask ourselves, is this the sort of thing that free, equal people would agree to live under? And if the answer to that is no, then we have good reason to reject it. With that in mind, you can maybe see how, from one perspective, this was kind of a radical idea at the time. Human beings are born free and equal, and governments are only legitimate if you agree to them. That kind of talk could spark a revolution.
Pause.
Well, look, this I want to say this because, I think Trump did have a lot to do with those people coming together and doing what they did. But at the same time, it wasn't him alone. It's like the world that we've been living in, the way that our government has changed, that made these people say, "I didn't sign up for this." You know what I'm saying? Like this is not a part of what I agreed to, or really any of us really agreed to, and there was people that was willing to fight for what what they do believe in. So I guess I'm one of those that hey, you can say whatever you want, that if the government is not just and doing what we're supposed to do something about it, going to kill people, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I mean something has to happen.
And it's in the Constitution, and I think that's what drives a lot of that.
Yeah,
The 17th.
that's why a lot of people are not getting, you know, on,
Hey,
you know,
America was built on gangsters.
I agree
Can you
with
guys
that.
hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, not very good, but I understood you. He said America was built on gangsters.
America was built on gangsters, and you wonder why our culture, the way we treat each other, is the same way. Our young brothers, they want to get ahead, they want money, they want a business, they want this and that. But that won't happen until we come together, until you figure out how to grow your own food, and you get into I would say like industrialism, guns, germs, and steel. We have to support one another, and if we're not going to do that, if we don't have an army, we're not going to get ahead.
Guns, germs, and steel. And yeah, so what you're saying is I agree with you as far as individuals, we have to be